In this episode of the Junior PenTester training series, we're going to go through the Burp Suite repeater module, and this is going to be a part of the Burp Suite module of videos for the Junior PenTester training series. In the last video, we talked about the very basics of Burp Suite, how to install it, how to capture traffic using the proxy, etc., etc. So if you haven't seen that, I would highly recommend watching that video before you dive into this one, because we're going to talk about specifically the repeater module. And we use the repeater module in the race conditions exercise when we were doing the web hacking series of videos for Junior PenTester, and it's a very powerful module. It's a very powerful piece of the overall Burp Suite suite of services that are available, even in the community version of Burp Suite. So very, very cool tool. I'm very excited to share it with you. The overview of our video today obviously is the introduction, what the repeater actually is, showing you the basic usage of the repeater, looking at the message analysis toolbar to kind of help us analyze a lot of the responses that we get from the repeater module. And then we're going to go through the inspector. We're going to go through the practical example of it. There's a challenge, there's an extra mile challenge, like extra credit for us. And of course, we're going to go through the conclusion, final thoughts, review, all of that good stuff. This specific room was created by the TryHackMe platform. Muirland and Logic were the two creators that actually did it. So really shout out to those people. I don't want to say those guys because I have no idea who it is, but just shout out, really, really grateful for them. Logic has been showing up a lot in the most recent videos, the last several videos that we've done. So Logic has been doing a lot of videos for us for Burp Suite. I'm a big fan of TryHackMe. You can get access to this specific room for free by just creating an email account or, you know, a user account with just your email and your password. You don't need to pay for anything. You get access to the virtual machines in this room, the attack box in this room, everything for absolutely free, which is one of the reasons why I love TryHackMe so much. They have hundreds of rooms like this one, and you just create your user profile. I don't get anything out of it, so this is not something that I'm promoting for that regard. I've just learned so much from this platform, and a lot of universities and schools actually use this platform for their students to get real-world hands-on experience with all of the concepts and theories behind pen testing and cybersecurity. If you do choose to join, send me a friend request so we can actually connect on TryHackMe. This is my user profile. So Hephaestus is the username. I am a guardian because I've been around for a minute, and I'm almost going to be, the next one I think is Titan, and then it's going to keep going up, but I've been spending a good amount of time on here. Hephaestus using 3s instead of E's, and if you know who Hephaestus is, drop it in the comment section below because it's one of my favorite Greek gods. I'll say that. It's from Greek mythology, and if you can find out who Hephaestus is, more brownie points to you. Very, very cool god. And then if you can try to figure out why I choose Hephaestus as my moniker, as my username, even more power to you and more points to you. So that's pretty much it for the overview of this video today. A quick shout out, a quick message from Hackaholics Anonymous, and then we'll dive into the content. If you're serious about your SysAdmin education and you want access to me on Discord, consider joining Hackaholics Anonymous. We have 4 tiers: the supporter, agent, guardian, and master. Each tier gets their own Discord server and early access to content. The agent, guardian, and master levels get exclusive content, exclusive downloads, monthly Python automations, live streams with me every month, plus so much more. And to join, you can simply click the link in the description below, or you can go to our homepage and click the join button there, or you can go to youtube.com/@HankHacksHackers/join, and you will be able to join Hackaholics Anonymous. Now, without further ado, let's jump into the Burp Suite repeater video. So the intro really just tells us that the Burp Suite repeater can be used to capture, manipulate, and forward requests that we have made from the proxy feature. It's a very, very powerful feature of the overall Burp Suite modules. And this is something that we did talk about in the Burp Suite Basics room. So if you have not gone through that video, which is the video right before this one on the Junior PenTester playlist, I would highly encourage it because I'm not going to go through the absolute basics that we talked about in that specific video. But what we're going to learn is how to manipulate and resend capture requests, and we're going to explore the various options and functionalities that are available in the repeater. And it's a very, very useful tool. Like I said, we used it for the race conditions hack that we did, and we transferred like over $1,000 out of one account to another account, and the account basically actually just had $100 in it, and we were able to use the repeater to send $1,000, like $1,300, whatever it was, to the receiving account. So very, very powerful concept and very powerful tool that you can actually use to do some really, really crazy things. And that's pretty much it for the overview. There is a start machine button that goes right here. And this is like a neon green that you can see, very similar to this one. Once you click it, the virtual machine that would give us access to our web application will launch. And then at the very top, there's going to be another button that says Start Attack Box. You can't see it right now because I'm super zoomed in. But then when you click on Start Attack Box, it'll show up in split view. And again, once I zoom in, it's kind of insane to see. So I have to go into full screen like that so that we can really see it. That's what it would look like if I stayed like this. So if we go into the full screen version, this is what it actually looks like. I already have Burp Suite up and running in the background. I already have the web application launched and running. So it should be easy from here on for us to just get access to things and kind of experiment with it. And that's pretty much it, right? So just make sure that you've watched the basics, the Burp Suite basics, Burp Suite introduction video. And from there, we're going to go ahead and run into the repeater. So what is the repeater? In essence, it enables us to modify and resend intercepted requests to the target. So it allows you to take a request that you captured with the Burp proxy and then manipulate that request, send that request repeatedly as many times as you need. You can duplicate it and send it automatically. You can manually send it. There are really cool features with this. So alternatively, we can also manually create requests from scratch and then choose a command line tool like curl to do it. But again, it's so much easier to do it through a graphical interface and have something that is as easy to use as the repeater. Honestly, like once we actually go through it, you're like, this is crazy how easy it is, and then how functional it is, how useful it actually is. So the ability to edit and resend requests multiple times makes the repeater invaluable. It provides a user-friendly graphical interface for crafting payloads, offering various requests or offering various views of the response, and of course including a rendering engines for graphical representation. The repeater interface consists of 6 main sections. So this is when you're actually on the repeater inside of Burp Suite. And then we can also just go ahead and look at it here, right? So this is what it looks like right here. This is the actual repeater with a captured request that I got and then a response that was generated. And let me zoom in on this. There we go. Okay, so we see it right here. So this is what you can see, right? This is the overall view right here. And so if we go, they give us the breakdown right here. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. So number 1 would be the request list located at the top left of the tab. It displays the list of the repeater requests. Multiple requests can be managed simultaneously, and you can actually even create a group. Each new request will be sent and it will appear right up here, right? The request controls that are positioned directly beneath the request list and allow us to send a request, cancel a request, and navigate through the request history. Request and response view is what we see right here in the middle right here. And these are the controls that they're talking about with the button, etc., etc. The request views in the middle, so you have the request itself and then you have a response. So it's basically the largest portion of the interface. And we can edit the request in the request view and then forward it while the corresponding response will be shown in the response view. We can't edit the response because it's literally the response we're getting from the web server, but we can use that response to further manipulate the request and see if we can do other things or get other data. The layout options located at the top right of this view, these enable us to customize the layout of the request and response views. Default setting is side-by-side horizontal layout. You can also choose vertical layout or combine them. So this is what we can see right here. Number 5 would be the inspector. And essentially, a lot of times what you see in requests is not something this small, right? So a request that would be sent or received, or, we send a request to the web server, so not received. But the request that would be sent to the web server typically is, hundreds of lines of XML, HTML, and sometimes trying to find the relevant pieces of it becomes really difficult. So this is where the inspector shines because it shows you the attributes, query parameters, body parameters, request cookies, request headers, and response headers. And then you can drop this down and go to the specific section of all of this code right here to be able to manipulate it or do whatever you want with it. So when you have really large requests, these inspector elements just become super, super handy. And of course, we have the target, which just has to do with the website that we're interacting with. In this particular case, is tryhackme.com is our target. So you'll end up seeing that as well. So which section gives us a more intuitive control over our requests, and the intuitive control actually comes from the inspector. So it allows us to analyze and modify requests in a more intuitive manner than using the raw editor. So we can say the inspector gadget. Okay, so here we go. Let's go talk about the basic usage of the Burp Suite repeater. So think about if you didn't have access to the repeater. One of the things that you would have to do most likely would be to create a manual request, right? Actually write out all of this right here, including the headers and including the body parameters, all of that stuff. So instead of doing that, you can just capture a request using the proxy module and then transmit it to the repeater for further editing. Once you've captured it in proxy, you can just do Control-R and send it to repeater, or you could just right-click on the actual request and then send it to the repeater. And so this is what it looks like when it's sent to the repeater, and then you can either send it as is by clicking this button and then you'll get a response, or you can modify it and then set it and you'll get a response. So let's actually try that. So this is the proxy. There's a bunch of stuff that's happened in the background, so I'm going to go ahead and turn off the proxy in the background right here to make our lives a little bit easier. We're going to drop, or how do I do this? I'm going to select all, I'm going to drop all of them so we start fresh here. Intercept is on inside of our proxy, so we would be capturing requests. I just need to make sure that I turn this back on. So currently it's disabled. So we're inside of the support page, for example, but let's go to just a home page, and we'll do exactly what they're doing in the documentation just to kind of display the example here. I'm going to turn on my Burp proxy and basically just going to refresh the page. Once I do that, we'll see that the browser is now hanging, meaning that it's not actually going to complete the request because Burp Suite intercepted that request. Now we can see there was a GET request here. We can see the basic contents of it. So what I can do now is I can either right-click and then send it to repeater, or I could just click on the thing, do Control-R, and you see that repeater just lighted up. So there we go. It lit up. And so now we can see the request, right? So it says connection keep alive, etc. So just to match the documentation, I'm going to do connection close here. And what we'll see is when we send it, we'll get a response from the web server. The browser is still hanging, right? But we now have a response. And in the response, we see that the connection is closed. But then it also shows us Bastion hosting, all of that, right? It actually shows us all of the things that would be from the response, which is actually very, very handy. Now, one of the key things that we can just kind of point out the utility of the repeater would be to just go connection instead of close, we could just do connection open, right? And then again, click on send. And now we can see the connection value now is keep alive instead of keeping or turning it to a closed option. And that's exactly what they demonstrated over here for us. Originally, when I loaded it, when I captured the request, you can see that it said keep alive. So I would have to do that, but you can have connection keep alive, connection open, connection close, and it'll give you all of those various responses accordingly, right? So this is what it looks like exactly right here. The target and the inspector section allows displaying of the relevant information. We're currently just lacking a response, so when we click the send button, which is basically, this is what they're talking about right here, the target and all of these are still empty because they never sent anything. So as soon as you click send, you get the response, and then now all of a sudden request headers are populated, responses populated, all of that stuff. In their example, they show right here that the connection is closed, right? So in the part of the request, there was a connection closed, so the connection response itself was closed, but then all they did was they changed the connection header to open, and then they got a response saying keep alive, which is exactly what we did over here as well. So that's just a very basic manipulation of one of the headers of the web page, and then we're going to go through the rest of the video, and then you're going to get to see some other more complex manipulations of what we can actually do and the types of responses we can generate. By the way, the request is still hanging in the background right here. So we can do this as many times as we want, send as many requests as we want, but that request is still going to be hanging as if the website never did anything, right? So that's what's very, very interesting right here. If I click drop, we can see Burp Suite Community Edition. There was a drop by the user, so that's fine. I'd never clicked forward, but if I would have clicked forward, it would have just reloaded the homepage normally. So if I turn off my proxy, click homepage again. Whoops, not the homepage of TryHackMe. I should actually go here. So there we go. Here's the homepage of this website right here. It's as if nothing had happened, and now we have a clear blank slate to start with again. So very, very handy, and you'll see how handy it actually can be as we go through the rest of the video. So which view will populate when you send a request from the proxy to the repeater? And so the first thing that populates is actually the request. So boom, there we go. There's our answer. All right, so message analysis toolbar. Let's go look at that. The message analysis toolbar gives us presentation options for our request and our response, and it can go from hexadecimal to an actual rendered page. Now, to be able to get the rendered page, we need to go into our settings, our overall settings right here, and then we need to go into Burp browser, and we need to allow the Burp browser to run without a sandbox. So you need to check that, because by default it's going to be turned off. So now that I have that, now I can actually render whatever might be going on in the background. So again, we'll do this, right? We're going to go ahead, enable the proxy, and then I'm going to go ahead and refresh the page. We'll have a captured request in the background. We're going to click on the request, Control R, send it to the repeater, and then this is where we are right here. Okay, so we'll send the request, and now we have a response. And these are the pieces that they're talking about right here as far as the message options, right? The message analysis toolbar, that's what we're talking about right here. So the pretty version, which is what's selected by default, is basically the raw version. As you can see, when I click on raw, the indentation goes away, the alignment is kind of messed up. So when you do pre, it's pretty, it's literally the same thing, it's just correctly formatted, so it's a little bit easier for us to track down what is what and what belongs to what header or what section, things like that. The hex version is the thing that most computer videos, or like computer science videos or movies about hacking and all these things, they show you this kind of stuff because it seems more, you know, nerdy, I guess you could say. But you have, this is the hex version, and this is very, very useful when you're dealing with binary types of files, and it's helpful with the cross-compatibility of the communication that's done between different types of computers and operating systems and services and things like that. So what you can notice is that on the right-hand side, we have this one section at the top. It says, you know, HTTP 1.1 200 OK, right? So if I go to here, same thing, HTTP 1.1 200 OK. The difference is, for this line, we actually have all of this hex code that actually aligns with this specific text that you see right here. So this is all basically just saying what this is saying, okay? It's just that, you know, most human beings that I know, like grand majority of human beings that I know, cannot read this off the top of their head. You have to be really smart, and you have to be very, very good at data retention and be kind of one of those like freak geniuses to be able to look at this and recognize it and process it, which is super cool. I just can't do it, which is why we have tools like Burp Suite to help us, you know, normal people, us incapable, or not, less capable, I should say, because I don't want to say that somebody who can read this is not normal. It's just that they're super talented and they're very, very, very capable. And I'm not that capable or talented. And then we have the render option, and the render option, if you don't turn on that button with the sandbox, it won't render anything. And right now it should technically render basically what we see in the background right here with the browser. I think it's just going to take a minute. There you go. So it actually is loading it, and this is what it will look like, right? So this is what this code that you see right here, all this HTML, XML, this is actually what it renders to. It's actually what it shows when you load a web page. So that's really cool to be able to see as well. And these things are very, very handy when you are trying to do something without constantly reloading a page and manipulating the options, and you want to see, okay, if I input something on here and I actually rendered it, how would it affect the rendered website? If I want to, you know, deface the website, for example, how could I do that, or anything of the sort? And I mean, I don't know what I could do really, but text, let's see if we just type in text and send that, what that would do to the rendering. Would it do anything? I don't think it would do anything. I think I need to like put it in the body or something like that, or I don't know. Anyways, I'm not going to go down that rabbit hole right now, but you can do a lot of manipulation. I'll just tell you that right now. There's one other option that they want to point out to us, which is this button that you see right here, this \n, which says show non-printable characters. You can actually do this on both the request as well as the response side. And it's easy to, or it makes it easier to notice when a new line begins and when another line ends, basically. So if you don't have the prettified version for whatever reason, or you're having a hard time determining where one thing begins and ends, a \n typically stands for a new line. So anytime that you see that, that means, okay, move to the next line. Okay, move to the next line, move to the next line. So if we go over here, we can see that, all right, at the end of this title, then the next line begins, which is meta, da-da-da-da-da. At the end of this, the next line begins, which is meta, name, etc. And it goes right here, and all of that is still one line. And then at the end of that, we have the next line that begins, and so on and so forth. And if we click on raw, for example, this becomes a little bit easier to see how effective it is, because now this line right here, the N right here, is still belongs to this line. So this signifies that this line is now over, and it's moving to the next one, and moving to the next one, etc. So it is not relevant to the scope of this specific video, but in the grand scheme of things, it will serve useful at one point in your future. So now what we can do, instead of dropping it, I'm just going to do forward all, and then we can see that basically it's no longer hanging. It actually loaded the homepage for us, because basically all I did was refresh the homepage, and that's all it was. I'm still going to disable my proxy because I don't want it to keep capturing random reloads in the background. But that's basically it, right? We had the pretty raw hex rendered, and we covered about the non-printable characters as well. So they can be very handy. It's just out of the scope of this specific video. So which option allows us to visualize the page as it would appear in a web browser? And that is the option of render. And again, just keep in mind that you do have to turn that little checkbox for the sandbox on when you look at the Burp's browser in the settings. All right, let's talk about the inspector. As I mentioned a little bit earlier, inspector is part of the feature of the repeater, where we can actually see on the right hand side these elements, and it can be very useful when you have a really big request that's being sent if you want to track down the different elements of it. So it's a supplementary feature to the request and response views. It's used to obtain a visually organized breakdown of the requests and the responses, as well as for experimenting to see how the changes that are made will actually affect the equivalent raw versions. So we can utilize it in both the proxy and the repeater modules, and it's on the far right hand side. As you already saw, this is what it looks like. And if you haven't sent anything, these things are going to be blank, so you need to actually send a request for these things to populate for you. And it breaks down into various elements that are actually very, very handy. So in the request attributes section, we can alter elements related to the location method and protocol, for example. And this includes modifying the resources that you want to retrieve, to changing the HTTP from get to post, or to put, or to delete or something, or switching the protocol from HTTP 1 to HTTP 2. So this is all the stuff that we see right here. This is under the request attributes. So for me right now, the request attributes here are a get request, right? So I'm sending a get request. We can see it at the top. This is the request attribute. It's get, and then it's the HTTP 1.1. So if we go here, the HTTP is 1.1. Request method is get, and actually, so the path is also right here. So this / that you see right here, that just stands for the root, like the index or the very main page of the website. So we're actually choosing, and when I highlight it, you can also see that it's been now selected specifically over here. So if I just click anywhere on here, it should just go back to its normal view that you can see. And then we have the request body parameters in this case, which is just text, which is what I manually put right here, which means nothing because I didn't use the parameter value breakdown. So it's actually just looking at it as text instead of anything else. So I can just delete that and then resend it just to kind of reset that for us. And then now we can see that in the body parameters, there's nothing because I accidentally put text and it read it as an actual parameter instead of the value of a parameter, which is very important, and we'll make that distinction in a few seconds here. We have the request headers that have been broken down for us, and then of course we have the response headers that are here. In this particular case, there are no request cookies or body parameters that are being sent via the request as well, but you can see all of those things. Now, parameters, just to kind of give you this explanation, because this helped me out a lot when I was studying coding and just HTML in general. And this also really helps a lot when if you understand networking. So requests and responses are a conversation of networking, specifically HTTP communication across an internet connection. However, it's still under the concept of networking. And if you haven't gone through any kind of networking education, I do have a CompTIA Network Plus playlist that a lot of people have used to actually pass their CompTIA Network Plus examinations. So I know it's a very, very good playlist. It's very comprehensive. I'm not just saying that because I was a creator. I've gotten a lot of good responses from it. So you can go through that if you don't have like a solid background in networking. But one of the things that is also really important to understand is this concept of what parameters are, okay? In this case, we have a URL that has a query, and the query starts after the question mark right here, and it's this. This is the query. And the parameter is redirect, and the value of the parameter is false. Now, another way to say this is the parameter is redirect, the argument to the parameter is false. So everything that's on the left side of this equal sign is the parameter, and what's on the right side could either be the value or the argument to the parameter. You can also refer to the parameter as a variable. You can also refer to it as a key, and you'll hear this concept a lot, key value pairs. When you hear about a key value pair, they're talking about, okay, there's redirect equals false. That's one key value pair. The key is redirect, the value is false. If after this there was another set and there was another one, there would be two key value pairs, right? And in coding, in development, we talk about it as variables and their values, or key value pairs. In URLs, specifically, they're referred to as parameters and the value to that parameter or the argument to that parameter. So I just want you to understand that. It's basically anytime you hear parameter, think about something like this. There's two values or two strings or text-based whatever separated by an equal sign, right? So this is a parameter, this is its value. That's basically what that is. So in the query, meaning what we're actually sending to the URL, we actually have parameters. But we can also have parameters inside of the body, and that is what can be displayed here. So if we make sure that this is turned off, and if I go to the support page, we can actually submit something via this form. So I can do hank@mail.com, which I've done before, and then we'll do, practice text or text, whatever. So now I need to make sure that I turn the proxy back on, submit the query. It's going to hang in the background, right? And we just had something new loaded inside of our proxy intercept. There we go. It's a post method, so it's a post request. And so now I need to pass this to the repeater. And here we go. So now we have a post request, but inside of the post request, now I have body parameters. So you have the email being the parameter, the value would be hank@mail.com. There's another parameter, content, the value for that is practice text, right? And so if we went to the side right here, now we can see we have body parameters. And so if I drop this down, email is one of them and content is another one. And we can go ahead and manipulate this, right? I can change practice because I misspelled it. I can now actually correct it and do practice text, right? And if I do that, we can go over here or actually I need to, I think, press enter. There we go. And if we do that, now it actually corrects my value for my parameter, and there you go. So you can actually manipulate it individually, and again, it becomes really handy when you have a really big request with a bunch of lines, not just 15 lines, right? So it doesn't seem as difficult to manage when it's this small, but when it's really gigantic and you have dozens of parameters or you have a bunch of data, then it becomes really handy to use the inspector. On the right hand side right here, there's these buttons that make it a little bit easier as well. You can do expand all, you can do collapse all. There's a setting portion that's dedicated specifically to the side panel, And again, there's just a bunch of really, really cool things. And anything that might not make sense to you or you want more information on, we talked about this in the basics video. You can click on this question mark and it'll actually open up the browser and take you to the documentation of Burp Suite and explain exactly what you're looking at and how it applies to you and what each individual explanation for each individual minor subsection of that graphic interface is. So it's very, 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 very handy. So that was basically this. Like, I just kind of gave you the explanation of all of these things just so you know what that inspector portion looks like. So while the textual representation of these components can be found within the request and response views, the inspector's tabular format provides a convenient way to visualize and interact with all of those different components, and experimenting with header additions, removals, and edits in inspector helps us grasp how the response would actually work. So we can actually go over here as well. And then you can see right here, there's a button, right? I can actually add a key value pair here, right? I can do now text, I guess, and it could be practice. And then I can apply this. And now there's another one. There you go. There's another parameter that was just added to my request here. And I can just make sure I have that highlighted, and then I can delete it, and it'll be deleted from the request. So very, very handy, very useful, makes life very easy. Which section in the inspector is specific to post requests? And that is the body parameters, right? Because post requests are the only ones that actually have body parameters that we would send. There are no other requests that would actually, I would say a put request, because a put request is a request to update information on a page. So a put request would also have body parameters, but we haven't talked about put requests, so you know, that's not for this conversation, but that is technically another answer that would actually have body parameters as well, but specific to post requests. So when we're comparing get versus post, definitely body parameters refer to post requests. Get requests, you're just retrieving data from the web server. You're not sending anything to them in the body. All right, let us talk about the practical example. The repeater is very useful when you're sending repetitive sending of similar requests, hence the name repeater. Typically with minor modifications, and this is particularly useful for activities like manual testing for SQL injection, or you know, race conditions, what we did, right? So attempting to bypass web application firewalls or adjusting parameters in formed resubmission. There are so many things. So what we're going to do is a really simple one. We're going to utilize the repeater to modify the headers of a request that are sent to the target. So capture the request to the home page in the proxy, and then send the request once from the repeater. You'll see the HTML source code. Try viewing this in one of the other display options, hex, etc. So we've done all of that already. Use the inspector or manually if you prefer to add a header called flag authorized and set it to the value of true. So it should be basically another one that we see at the bottom that we would add. And what's the flag that we receive? So that's basically it. So what we're going to do is we're going to turn off, or we're going to forward all of these. I'm going to first turn this off so I can go back to the home page, and we will again, let's just make sure that the requests are completely done. So let's forward all of them. And there you go. So we'll go back to the home page here, and we're going to turn the proxy back on and then refresh. We'll capture it in the background. There it is. We're going to forward it, and it'll be in the repeater. And what we want to do is we just want to add one right here, basically. That's it. And it's supposed to read what flag authorized equals true. So I can just type that out, but why not just use one of these things that we have over here for us? So we will do the request query parameters, which would be right here. And I'm going to call it a flag authorized. And then the value will be true. And then let's actually click add and see if it shows up. Oh, it added it at the very top, which is not where I want it to go. That's actually very annoying. So we need to bring it at the bottom right here. And then remove that leading question mark. So it should look like this. Flag authorized equals true. Let's confirm that. Flag authorized. And see, this is actually, so maybe it's not something that, I think I did it in the wrong section. Maybe it's supposed to be in the request attributes. No, I don't think so. Request body parameters, request cookies, request headers. Request headers is where I should have added it. That's where I should have added it. There you go. Now we actually have flag authorized equals true. So this is actually not the case, and it's not reading it correctly because it's putting everything under the value, right? So it's actually supposed to be under request headers. So we will just go ahead and delete that real quick. And then let's go back to request headers here, and then we'll add it manually over here. I could have just typed it, but I really wanted to get this part really good for you. So flag authorized, and the value will be true. And then we're going to add that and see if it shows up. There you go. Now it's showing up exactly how it's supposed to. Boom, like that. And authorized is misspelled on their end, I want to say, but I think they're using the British version because the creators of TryHackMe are in the UK. So I think they do authorized with an S, and we do it with a Z in the States. But we have to do it exactly how they instructed, otherwise we won't retrieve the flag. So now that I have this, I'm going to click send. And in my response, boom, there's the flag. Excellent. Nice. So we're going to copy that bad boy right here. Where's my copy option? There we go. Copy. And paste and submit. Voila. Excellent. So now let's do something a little bit more difficult. All right, the purpose of this one is to go and look at the products page and see what we can do here. So if we go to the products page, we can click around, and then there's a see more option or see more link for them. And then when we do that, we're going to be redirected to a numeric endpoint, for example, products number 3, right? So the object is to validate the endpoint and confirm the existence of the number that we wish to navigate to, etc. Consider what might happen if the endpoint is not accurately validated. So for example, in our particular case, it would be trying to retrieve this 500 internal server error. So we want to do something, do some kind of an extreme input, as they're saying, to get an internal server error from the website. And then ideally when we do that, there should be an actual flag inside of that error. So what we're going to do again, we're going to go back to the proxy because they told us to make sure that we actually do this. So we're going to, I guess I'll just turn off intercept here, which will do the same thing as me going into the browser and actually turning off the Burp proxy right here. So we're going to go to the product link right here, and then we can see we have our products. And so if I click see more, now I see product number 1 is the VPS, and if I just change it up here to product number 2, it'll load the next one. And if I change it to product number 3, it'll load the next one, right? Or, well, in this particular case, it's taking me to Google. Very interesting. So that's very interesting. So maybe if I do 3, let's do that. Okay, there you go. Okay, so now we see it, right? So we see that we have these numerical IDs that are assigned to these different products. Okay, I get it. Excellent. So we're going to go ahead and turn intercept back on, and then we're going to just load this just so we can capture the request. So there we go. I just pressed enter, and it should capture my request. Nope, it hasn't. So maybe I'll do refresh here, and there we go. It's captured my request. So it's getting a get request to the products /3. So we're going to go ahead and send this to the repeater by doing Control R, and now we have this. So here's the thing. So it says, see if you can get the server to error out with a 500 internal server error by changing the number at the end of the request to extreme inputs, and see what the response would be in the flag. So technically you can do this inside of the actual browser itself, and it'll give you a server error. But what we're trying to do is we're trying to see the response in code. We're trying to see the HTML, XML response and what would actually be inside of that source code, because the flag is not going to be on the web browser itself. So if I start with a product of 0, so let's do what it would do if we did 0. And it says 404 not found. Okay, what if I did a -1? So if I do a product of -1, what does that do? 500 internal server error. Okay, there we go. That's my that's my internal server error. So now is there a flag in here? Oh, there it is. Look at that. There's my flag. I retrieved the flag. So okay, so the extreme input in this particular case was actually just doing a negative ID. So that's I mean that's kind of easy when you really think about it. That was not that hard. So let's see if that's the flag. I think it is. Okay, great. And there we go. We also just completed that part. So, okay, cool. We're good with this one. Let's go to the extra mile challenge. Let's see what we can get from the extra mile challenge. The extra mile challenge has to do with SQL injection. Now, we have done a fairly extensive SQL injection introduction in the intro to web hacking module for this playlist, for the junior PenTester playlist. However, I actually want to go through this myself and get even more information about this and kind of get a better understanding of this. So they do say that you can skip ahead to the final question and attempt this as a blind challenge if you already are really familiar with SQL injection and you know how to do it. However, I do want to read through it for the people that have never been exposed to this. And if this is something that you would like to learn more about, there is another video that's inside of the Junior PenTester playlist that you can go and check out for SQL injection attacks. So you can go ahead and watch that as well. And it goes deeper into this, and we use a lot more examples of SQL injection. So the prerequisite is, again, the SQL injection room that we actually did to this, so you can go ahead and check it out. The objective here is to identify and exploit a union SQL injection vulnerability present in the ID parameter. Now, a union SQL injection, union has to do with combining two various databases. So SQL is specifically a relational database, okay? So structured query language is what SQL stands for, and it's basically the language to query databases. And specifically, they are relational databases, meaning that they can actually work in conjunction with each other. The data from one database can be used to combine with the data from another database, and then you can receive interesting information once you've learned how to query both of those various databases, right? They need to have at least one specific column in common with each other. So for example, the ID column is pretty standard, where it's like the user ID would exist in all of the different databases that exist, and then from there you can go ahead and try to combine the data from each one of them. Anyways, so what we're trying to do in this particular case is we're going for the ID parameter of the about ID endpoint. By leveraging this vulnerability, the task is to launch an attack to retrieve the notes about the CEO stored in the database. So we know that there's a vulnerability. The specific vulnerability is going to be on the about page. So we need to capture that, specifically about /2. And once you've captured the request, send it to the repeater and right-click, choosing the send to repeater. So this is what it will look like, right? So sending it, and then the big thing that we're doing in the first portion is just putting an apostrophe just to see if we can cause the server to error with a simple SQLI, meaning SQL injection, to see if there's actually SQL injection that's actually possible. So when you send something like this, an apostrophe is part of the SQL syntax, the SQL language itself. So if you send it, it might give you an error, right? To say, you know, this is or is not going to work. So you should see that the server will respond with an internal server error indicating that we've successfully broken the query, okay? If we look through the body of the server response, we see something very interesting around line 40. It's telling us that the query that we tried to execute, which means this, so this actually looks like an SQL query. So it says what you tried to execute in this case was you are trying to pull first name, last name, PFP link, role bio from the people table where the ID is to apostrophe. So this is where our little injection came in, and now it's showing us, oh, you know, you got an error because this query, this full query by itself would have launched, but you, in your case, you added this extra piece at the end, so this query is not going to work. Now with that apostrophe, right? This entire query, including that apostrophe, isn't going to work. It's an invalid statement. So, okay, so that implies that there is actually vulnerability, okay? So that error message should absolutely not be sending it to us, because we shouldn't know what is being sent to the server, because now we know that it is actually sending an SQL statement and we can go ahead and modify it. But the fact that we have it makes our job significantly more straightforward. So the database table that we're selecting is people. The query selects 5 columns, first name, last name, PFP link, role, and bio. And with this information, we can skip over the query column number and table name enumeration steps. And we've managed to cut out a lot of enumeration. We still need to find the name of the target column. So in this case, now instead of doing about 2, which is what the last piece was, now we're going to do about 0. And then we're going to craft the union statement for SQL. and it's going to say union all. So union all of the databases that you have, all of the tables that you have access to, and select the column name, and everything else would be null, meaning empty, from the information schema columns where the table name is people, right? So you basically want to pull all the column names that are available, don't worry about anything else, from this table of people. And this creates a union query that selects the target, then 4 null columns to avoid the query erroring out. Notice that we also changed the ID from selecting from 2 to 0 by setting the ID to an invalid number. We can ensure that we don't retrieve anything with the original legitimate query. This means that the first row returned from the database will be our desired response from the injected query. Looking through the returned response, we can see that the first column named ID has been inserted into the page title. So into the page title, we can see the ID would be ID none on the about page. So we pulled the first column out of the database, but now we have a problem. The page only displays the first matching item, and we need to see all of the matching items. And so we can do this using concat, group concat, which is a concatenation command. So again, union all select, group concat, column name, null, 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 from the table people, basically. And so this is what we can see right here. So this is what is sent, right? This is in the header itself. So you can see about /0. Let's zoom in on this a little bit. We can see about /0 union, all select, group concat, column name, etc., etc., etc. All of that is being sent. And then this is all before the HTTP one. So this is all being sent as the very header at the top. And then we can see that as a response, this is what we get about. And then now it's giving us all of the columns. ID, first name, last name, PFP link, role, short role, bio, notes. And that's what we're interested in, is that notes at the end right there. Okay, great. So we're getting some good information. So now we've found all the 8 columns, including notes, and we're most interested in the notes. So we're ready to get the actual retrieve of that flag. So the name of the table is people. We know that. The name of the column is notes. And the ID of the CEO is 1, and it can be found by simply clicking on Jameson Wolf's profile in the About page. This is actually very handy. So if we go to proxy, turn off intercept, and go to the About page, and we're looking for the CEO, which is Jameson Wolf. So if we click on this guy, we can see that his ID is 1. So that's actually very useful. This is very interesting. You see the mindset of a hacker is very interesting because you're pulling data from different sources and you're using that data to craft your overall query. And so the final query is going to be this: union all select notes, and then everything else is still null from the people table where the ID equals 1. And doing this will get us the flag right here, which has been blanked out for us. And there it is. So enter exploit the SQL injection vulnerability in the site and go ahead and run it. So I'm going to just drag this off the screen just so I can actually type that out. And then we'll go ahead, because I want to practice the command itself. I know I can copy paste. Everybody's going to come tell me in the comment section that, you can copy paste this. I'm like, yeah, I understand. I know I can copy paste, but I want to do it manually. So I'm going to refresh the page right here. The request is going to be captured. We're going to send it to the repeater, and there it is. And so this is the portion where we're going to input that full query for the SQL injection. So let me just pull it up on my second monitor real quick, and then we will fast forward through this. This is going to be a time lapse, and it's going to be really exciting. Ready? It's going to start with the 0, and here we go. There we go. That was it. Pretty quick. So about 0, right? Union all select notes from people where ID equals 1. Send it, and there it is. There's the flag. Just like that. How cool is that? If that kind of went over your head and you don't know exactly what just happened, I understand. And again, I encourage you to go watch the SQL injection video, because we go into the steps of that step by step. We go through the whole thing, and you learn SQL injection from the most basic SQL injection attack to the most complex including stuff that's very similar to what we just did. It's like a really, really long, I don't want to say it's a really long, but it's a very comprehensive video. It's a very comprehensive video, and you learn a lot about SQL injection, which is actually very, very interesting and very useful, because SQL injection, most databases, or I shouldn't even say most databases, most businesses have some kind of a database. Either it's their employee database or their customer database. Almost every company has an online database. Now, the storing of their database and the security of their database is very interesting, and it's very sensitive, and hopefully they do that part well. But you can pretty much rely that every single company is going to have a database, and your job is going to be whether or not you can exploit that specific database using SQL injection and try to pull the data that you shouldn't have access to, for example, the CEO's notes. So let's wrap this thing up. Congratulations on wrapping this up with me. I hope you actually got value out of this. By now, you should have a solid understanding of effectively utilizing Repeater to edit, manipulate, and resend requests. If you want to see something even crazier, go look at the race conditions video, because we did use Burp Suite Repeater, and I think it was premature because we hadn't gotten the official introduction to the repeater, but we did like a really cool exercise, a pen test exercise against a banking application using the repeater, and we sent money, and it was really crazy that we did that. So there's a lot more than you can do with the repeater apart from what we just did, but this is just kind of like a surface level. We just scratched the surface with this thing, and it's very, very handy. So you've gained insight into the numerous practical applications, and in the next room of Burp Suite, which is what we're going to be talking about, we're going to talk about the intruder module, which allows for the automated and customizable attacks, making it a powerful tool for various security testing scenarios. So again, very, very exciting, and it's going to be the very next video right after this one that will be recorded for Burp Suite, and hopefully you will get value out of that as well. If you did get value out of this video, and if you would like to get more videos like this one, I encourage you to like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell so that you get notified the next time that a video comes out on this channel, whether or not it's on the Junior PenTester pathway, or if it's on the CompTIA Pentest Plus pathway, or anything else that we put out on this channel, because I am constantly recording, and it's getting bigger and bigger, and the community is getting bigger, and there are requests that are being made for new content, and it's just becoming more and more robust, and I love it so much because our community is getting very large, and people are contributing and helping each other out, and it's beautiful. It's a beautiful thing to see. So I would love for you to be a part of that community. If you have any questions about this specific exercise that we did today, drop the question in the comment section below. I will get to your question and respond to it as fast as I possibly can, and hopefully I'll be able to answer that question for you and help your life a little bit, and help you learn and understand these concepts a little bit more. On this channel, you know, there's a lot that you can find. Honestly, there's the playlists that are available. So for example, the PenTest Plus, which every Friday a new video comes out. The Hackaholics Anonymous members get access to them in advance. So as I record them, I schedule them out for every Friday, but there are some episodes that literally come out weeks in advance to Hackaholics Anonymous members. The Network Plus playlist is complete. It's already done, and this is very, very useful as well. Python, this is for Hackaholics Anonymous exclusive. Security Plus is already done, in case you're studying for CompTIA Security Plus. Linux Plus is also something that a lot of people have used to pass their Linux Plus examination, so I know that this is a really, really solid playlist. I do have like a shortened version of it, which is actually, I think, the most popular video on our channel, which is this thing right here. So this one has gotten some criticism because I refer to Linux as a language, and some people who are extremely detail-oriented and technical, they did not like that, and they think that I don't know what I'm talking about because I refer to Linux as a language, and I can understand where they're coming from, but it's also one of those things that, like, the content itself is good. Like, when you get into the commands and the explanation of the commands and all the things that we do, it's actually really handy and it's really useful. But in the intro, I misquote, or I misname Linux, and I call it a language, and people get really, really upset. So if you can get past that portion, the rest of it is really, really good. And that's a shortened version of the Linux Plus playlist, because this video is less than 2 hours. The first episode of the Linux Plus playlist is 6 hours and 52 minutes. So it's very comprehensive. The Linux Plus playlist, including all of the other playlists, the CompTIA playlists, are very comprehensive. So you'll get a lot out of it. Of course, we have all of the members only videos. So for example, the early access to the CompTIA Pentest episode 16, that's available for everybody else. And again, really cool things. SOC level 1, SOC level 2, security engineering, and then there is another playlist, this CySec 101. If you haven't gone through this, you might miss your foundations. Again, there's just a lot of stuff. I'm telling you, there's a lot of stuff. There's over 380 videos that are on the channel right now, and probably by the time that you find this video, there are going to be even more videos on this channel. So there's a lot of stuff all around cybersecurity, security engineering, ethical hacking, and some IT administration and computer administration as well. So you'll find a lot of stuff. Like, subscribe, turn on notification bell if you have not done so already, so that you get notified the next time that a video comes out. Let me know if you have any questions in the comment section below, and that is it. If you're serious about your SysAdmin education and you want access to me on Discord, consider joining Hackaholics Anonymous. We have 4 tiers: the Supporter, Agent, Guardian, and Master. Each tier gets their own Discord server and early access to content. The Agent, Guardian, and Master levels get exclusive content, exclusive downloads, monthly Python automations, live streams with me every month, plus so much more. And to join, you can simply click the link in the description below, or you can go to our homepage and click the join button there, or you can go to youtube.com/@hankhackshackers/join, and you will be able to join Hackaholics Anonymous. I hope I see you in the Discord chats. If not, I hope I see you in the comment section, and that is it for today. It's your boy Hank Hackerson at Hank Hacks Hackers, your favorite network and system attacker/protector. If no one else loves you, Hank loves you. Love, peace, and chicken grease, and I'll see you in the next video later.